Today bright Phoebe, she smiled down on me for the very first time. For the very first time she smiled on me. Today bright Phoebe, she smiled down on me for the very first time. For the very first time she smiled on me.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being in Glasgow. They'd asked me to do the soundtrack for a film they were making about an anti-Polaris demonstration, and I went up there to Glasgow to be with this demonstration, and the people were foregathering in, I can't remember which square in Glasgow. They were going to then march down to the docks and get on a boat and go up the Clyde. And there was lots of young people there ready to demonstrate, and there was lots of young gentlemen, young men there, part of the demonstration, and most of the young men had guitars. And as you walked around the square, various lots of people waiting for the demonstration to form up. Must have been, many dozens, maybe close to 100 people with guitars. And as you walked past them, you got slightly different versions of Angie. It was like a John Cage sort of thing. As you walked around the square, Angie, in one person's interpretation, would float into your hearing, and as you walked past him, you would move into another one. Everybody played Angie. My mother had a basement flat there in the same building, and it was in my old mum's basement, front room of my old mum's basement flat, or garden flat as they like to call it in those days. That, I don't know, in retrospect, we did a lot of recording in the first floor flat. We had Pink Floyd in there once. I'd hired some equipment because Topic was a state where they didn't really own very much in the way of gear. And I hired some equipment, very, very, very modest equipment, set it up, one mic. They all sat around one microphone and played, and that was it. As I remember, it was pretty well one take.
EFDSS Gold Badge is seeking possibility of further recognition as A, being a visiting professor with absolutely no academic qualification, B, being the oldest functioning record producer, or C, the deafest functioning. Anyway, that came from Bill. The rest of it's me. I'm a great believer in what I call the ripple effect, and that is when you throw a ripple in water, it spreads out and out, the circles go on and on and on to the edge of the pool. Same thing happens when you do something bad or you do something good. The ripples go on and on and on, spreading out on and affecting people all over. And let me tell you a little story. In or around 1971, Christy Moore was sleeping on the floor of our house in Crumsall, Manchester, at number 9 Cathkin Avenue. He'd made an album called Paddy on the Road that was produced by Dominic Bean. It was a little bit overproduced, in my humble opinion, had a lot of orchestration on it and sort of jazz musicians. But Christy liked it, and for its time, it was okay. But he wanted to do something a bit less commercial, something more folky, something more rooted. And I suggested that he give Bill a ring, because Bill had started the new label up and was doing really well and done great stuff with Robin and Barry Dransfield and Nick Jones and Dave Bell and people like that. So Christy gave Bill a ring. He said, "Do you think you'd have me on the label?" I said, "Yeah, I think he will." He phoned Bill, and Bill said, "Yeah, great idea." So Christy got together some musos, Donald Lunny, Liam O'Flynn, Andy Irvine, and a group of other people, and they went to a house called Prosperous, which I think his brother-in-law owned. It's quite a sort of an old not stately home, but a biggish house in the countryside in Kildare. They practiced for a couple of days. Bill drove over with a Revox tape recorder and a couple of AKG D12s, strung them up, and the rest is history. They released an album called Prosperous, which went on to be an incredibly successful album, both in Ireland and across Europe. The effect of that band on the music scene when they eventually turned into what we know as Planksty and got Johnny Moynihan on board. The effect of that band was absolutely sensational, a phenomenal effect. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that Planksty showed the young people of Ireland their roots and saw their music. They began to see their music as something alive and exciting and vibrant. And within a few years, there were bands like Dedannan, Dervish, Arcady, Bioga and Danu following in the steps of Planksty. Christy, of course, has gone on to have a career that has spanned 5 decades and has taken him across the world. And it was, in fact, Christy who presented Bill with the Good Folk Award at the 2012 BBC Radio 2 Folk Awards. And that one simple thing that Bill did. Yeah, good idea. Drives over to Ireland, produces an album which changes the face of a whole country's music. I told you that simply to illustrate how the work of one extremely talented man working with a good pair of ears and a nose for great music can have a massive effect on the world of folk music. And I don't think it's possible to overestimate the effect that Bill Leader has had on the music that we all love. From his early work recording people like Ewan McCall, Isla Cameron and A.L. Lloyd on the Topic label, his work with Nat Joseph of Transatlantic Records, that great little fireball, who produced the Dubliners, the Ian Campbell folk group, David Graham, Bert Jansch and Pentangle, through to his own labels, Leader and Trailer. On the Leader label, you've got traditional Irish musicians like Martin Burns, Seamus Ennis and Seamus Tansey in that great 4-album box set by the Coppers, A Song for Every Season. And here's just a few of the artists on the second wave of the folk revival who found their voice on Trailer. Christy Moore, Nick Jones, Archie Fisher, Barbara Dixon, Tony Rose, Robin and Barry Dransfield, Vin Garbutt, Pete and Chris Code, Dave Burland, Martin Simpson, Bob and Carol Pegg, Bob Davenport, Martin Wyndham Reed, Ali Bain, Dave and Tony Arthur, Roy Bailey, Leon Rosselson, John Kirkpatrick, Ray Fisher, and many, many, many more. And there was, of course... yeah, but that was... Anyway, and there was, of course, that great seminal album, the release of Bright Phoebus by Mike and Lal Waterson, which is just one of the most groundbreaking records in the folk world. In the early years, many of Bill's recordings on his label were made not in the studio, but in Bill and Helen's flat in Camden Town in North Villas.
I'm the leader of the rubber band. It's the finest and the best band in the land, and isn't it grand? Being the only band in the land to play rubber band. Just like margarine or famous spreading, and our eyes to stardom won't be slow. If we stretch our members to the limit, I'd like to see how far the band goes.